Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley at sprinkledwithglitter.com. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am sharing a fun card project that features some brand new products from the Essentials by Ellen line. It is time for their holiday release, and I'm going to be using this sweater tag die set and show you how you can use the stitching die with foiling. Now, first I wanted to give you a look at the entire release, and this is a big release and there's a lot of products. I'm going to flip through the products really quickly just so that you can get an idea of everything that's in this new release. I will have a link to the complete release in the YouTube description below, so if you're looking to check all these products out, you can do so at that link. Many of these stamp sets have coordinating die sets. There's some fun interactive elements. There is a new designer in this mix, so a new person kind of providing art. This is one of those interactive sets, and it is the Snow Angel stamp and die set. Then there's a couple of products that work with the Sentiment Strips die set that was released earlier this year. You'll remember I created a bunch of sentiments at once with those, and I'll link to that video in the upper right-hand corner. There is this adorable stitching deer set, a mailbox, some hot foil plates as well, including the Essential Rectangles hot foil plate, which coordinates with the Essentials by Ellen Essential Rectangles dies. And finally, the wide house box die. Now, there was another house box die that was released earlier this year. This one is different and it has some add-ons that make it perfect for the holidays. So I'm going to do some foiling today, and I first wanted to point out to you that my Gemini FoilPress platform is warped, and a lot of people ask me what I do about the warping on my Gemini FoilPress platform. And the truth is, I don't really do anything. You're seeing here that I'm using it warped to foil these holiday cheer hot foil sentiments that are brand new from the Essentials by Ellen line. I am just foiling as normal, and when this goes through the machine, it kind of flattens out that warping a little bit. Everything seems to make contact just fine, and I get great foiling results. So this will tend to warp at a little higher heats, which I do use the medium heat in order to use the glimmer foil with the Gemini FoilPress. But when I run it through the machine, it kind of flattens out. So just give that a try. I don't really worry about it so much. I just make sure that my plate has plenty of time to heat up and foil as usual. So now that I have all of my sentiments foiled, I used the Sentiment Strips die set, which coordinates with these holiday cheer hot foil sentiments, to die cut all of those sentiments. Now there is a stamp set as well that has some fun holiday greetings that will coordinate with that Sentiment Strip die set as well from the Essentials by Ellen line. And I have used that in some projects that I've created that I'm sharing throughout the month, as well as over on my Instagram. So if you're interested in seeing that, be sure you're following me on Instagram as well. Now, I wanted to make a beautiful green sweater for the holidays, and so I am taking the Stamp Market Jade cardstock, and I'm ink blending some Catherine Pooler Deck the Halls ink onto the edges. And I just wanted to give a little bit of variation and a little bit of depth and intensity to this cardstock, and I find that this ink blending over this color cardstock works really beautifully. Now, before I do my foiling, I want to make sure that the ink on this cardstock is nice and dry so that the foil can adhere to the cardstock. And I'm going to use the new Cozy Sweater Tag die set from the Essentials by Ellen line. And I'm going to do a little hot foiling with a traditional die. And that's a question I get a lot. Can you foil with a traditional die? And the answer is yes. But the lines that you're going to get from the foiling are a lot finer. So I'm setting this up just like I would a normal foiling, only this time I'm using that inner die from the Cozy Sweater Tag die set that creates the stitching. And I'm using the Glimmer Hot Foil in the color Champagne, and I'm going to put my plate onto the Gemini FoilPress platform. You can see I have my foil there and my cardstock. I've set my timer to about a minute, and when that minute timer was over, I ran that through my Gemini Junior, and look at this foiling result. All of those stitched lines, which would normally be pressed into the paper as little tiny cuts or little tiny kind of impressions, are now foiled onto my cardstock. Now I can use the coordinating die that goes around the outside of the stitching die, and I can cut out my sweater. Now you'll notice that when I did my hot foiling with that traditional die, I did not use any shims, but you may need to add an additional paper shim to your foiling sandwich if you're not getting enough pressure. But keep in mind, the lines on a die are much thinner than the lines on a foiling plate. So you're not going to get like these big, thick, wide areas of foiling. You're going to get a really delicate foiling instead. Now I decided I wanted to use this Catherine Pooler Wintergreen and do a direct to paper technique to create some really beautiful light green cardstock for my background. So you can see I'm just pressing the ink pad onto some smooth white cardstock. The Concord in 9th white cardstock works really well for this, as well as Hammermill. And it's not very smooth, but don't worry, it's not gonna matter much. And I'm gonna take the cover plate die. It's the Stitches cover plate die from the Essentials by Ellen line. And I'm gonna run that through my die cut machine. And that's going to add a stitched pattern to this panel, to this inked panel. And I'm going to die cut that down using one of the Essentials by Ellen Essential Rectangle dies. And these are great because not only do they cut the shape itself, but you also get this delicate frame. You can see it there on my cutting plate. It's like a 2-for-1, and I absolutely love that. So now I have one of my foiled sentiments here. This one says fabulous, and I love the pun here. And I wanted to add a little bit of color to this sentiment strip. Now I did all of these sentiment strips on white cardstock, but ink blending over the top of the foil is not a problem at all. It will resist that ink, and you can add color to each of these strips. So you don't have to decide right away what color you want your sentiment strip to be. You can foil them on white cardstock and then do a little ink blending over the top later. So I started out with Concord and 9th ballet slipper, and then I came in over the top of that with a little bit of the Catherine Pooler clay mask ink. And that gave me that really kind of beautiful orangey, peachy pink sentiment strip there. And now I grabbed the Catherine Pooler polished ink along with the High Five stamp set from the Essentials by Ellen line, and I stamped and die cut that heart there. So I wanted to take this sentiment and make it a little shorter and add a banner end. So I'm trimming that down, and I'm trimming a little slit in the center of this strip. And then I'm trimming from each corner to that center slit to create a perfect little banner end. And I did that on both sides of my greeting. Now I'm going to add my sweater onto this stitched panel using some foam adhesive. So I'm just lining that up there in the center. I'm going to add the heart with a little bit of liquid glue. I'm using the Barely Arts glue, and I love this glue. I'm just going to be sure that I position it where you can still see the foiling on the cuff of the sweater. I didn't want to cover up too much of that foiled detail. And for the sentiment strip, I added a little bit of foam adhesive to the back, but I also added some liquid glue so that I could kind of slide it into place and make sure that it was perfectly straight before it really stuck down onto my card project. Now I took this entire panel and added it to an A2 size card base using some foam adhesive. So there's a lot of dimension here. And I finished the card off with a few sparkling clear sequins from Pretty Pink Posh. And that completes my fabulous sweater card for the day, featuring some foiling using a standard die. And I absolutely love the way this card project turned out. I love the delicate foil detail on the sweater, and I also love the ink blending on the sweater that gives it a little variation in tone instead of it being just a flat color of cardstock. As always, I will have links to the featured products used in this project in the description at YouTube. So if you're looking for something in particular, be sure to check there. Or you can head on over to my blog at sprinkledwithglitter.com. I'll have that linked below as well. Over there, you'll find more still shots, more information, and a complete list of supplies. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this project, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications here on my YouTube channel so you don't miss any of my paper crafting and card making video tutorials. And if you loved this video, I would love it if you would share it with a friend. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. fabulous, like fabulous.